The markets are closed, but the business stories are just heating up. Hello, I'm Mai Rodriguez. Catch up with us on Business Brief. Asian shares mostly rise as upbeat earnings and growing expectations for U.S. rate cuts boost investor sentiment. Australia's ASX is currently in the red while the rest are in the green. The U.S. dollar is flat against the Japanese yen and the Hong Kong dollar, while it depreciates against the Singapore dollar, the South Korean won, and the Thai baht. The Australian dollar, on the other hand, appreciates against the greenback. In commodities, gold prices rise by nearly 0.4%, while oil prices are mixed. In the cryptocurrency space, Bitcoin falls by almost 0.8%, while Ethereum is flat. The United States is set to impose a 100% tariff on imported semiconductor chips. President Donald Trump announced that the new rate will cover all chip imports except for companies that have committed to set up manufacturing plants in the U.S.
We'll be putting a tariff on of approximately 100% on chips and semiconductors. But if you're building in the United States of America, there's no charge, even though you're building and you're not producing yet in terms of the big numbers of jobs and all of the things that you're building. If you're building, there will be no charge. So I just want everyone to know that. And I didn't even tell you that inside. We discussed the concept, but I didn't. So it's a big factor. So 100% tariff on all chips and semiconductors coming into the United States. But if you've made a commitment to build, or if you're in the process of building, as many are, there is no tariff.
The British Chamber of Commerce is urging the Philippines to join the Comprehensive and Progressive Agreement for Trans-Pacific Partnership, or CPTPP, as a way to diversify trade and strengthen economic ties. In an interview on BNC's Business 360, Executive Vice Chairman Chris Nelson said this move could open doors to new markets and expand access to the Asia-Pacific region, particularly in light of the U.S. imposing a 100% tariff on semiconductor imports.
Well, that's obviously a significant issue for the Philippines, as highlighted in your report. That is why I believe that the Philippines will look to need to diversify. Clearly, that's why CPTPP is important.
Nelson also highlighted the importance of passing key legislation, particularly the e-governance and cybersecurity acts, to further encourage foreign investments. The UK is eyeing further growth in its trade relationship with the Philippines, building on a record $764 million in investments last year.
Our trade is at $3 billion between the two countries. We recently had the UK's trade envoy, George Freeman, visit. And I think there is visions that over the next 5 years, we look to try and double that figure.
President Bongbong Marcos and his delegation touched down in Bengaluru. The city has been nicknamed the Silicon Valley of India. It is the final leg of the president's state visit, where he's scheduled to meet with various business leaders. On Friday, he will have a press briefing before heading back to Manila. The president has described his visit to India as one of the most productive and constructive visits he has ever had. The country's foreign reserves slipped to $105.7 billion as of end July. Data from the Bangko Sentral show a slight decline from $106 billion at the end of June. The BSP says the drop was driven by lower global gold prices and debt payments made by the national government. The peso strengthens against the dollar Wednesday. This comes after the Bangko Sentral said it would step up intervention to curb sharp currency swings. The Bankers Association of the Philippines reports the peso closed at 57.48, stronger than the previous 57.63. RCBC Chief Economist Michael Ricafort says the rebound followed BSP Governor Eli Remolona's remarks on more aggressive intervention to address the peso's weakness and inflation risks. The Energy Regulatory Commission is under new leadership, and the new chair is vowing to act swiftly on power issues, especially in the Visayas. Paulo Barcelon joins us on the line with more on his priorities. Hello, Paulo. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Mai. ERC Chairperson Francis Saturnino Juan says the agency is set to investigate power issues hounding the Visayas region in its first few days in office. Attorney Juan says they will ensure that power providers in the Visayas grid will deliver the required power load in the area. After now former Chairperson Mona Lisa Di Malanta says the first day of the outage saw a misassessment of actual available power in the region. But on the succeeding days, Mai, the Energy Regulatory Commission noted that insufficient power production due to equipment issues. One also adds that he's expecting to see reports on the power situation in Siquijor next week, amid the ERC ordering the province of Siquijor Electric Cooperative, or Proscelco, continuing with its deal with the Siquijor Island Power Corporation, or SIPCOR, owned by the prime asset ventures firm of ultra Bilyonaryo and former Senate President Manny Villar. Juan also promised to make revamps in the agency's processes and closely cooperate with consumers and power sector stakeholders as he takes the reins from Di Malanta, who earlier resigned after the president's cabinet reshuffle. Mai?
Thank you so much, Paulo Barcelon. We're taking a short break. More business stories are up next. You're watching Business Brief. Welcome back to Business Brief. Hundreds of billions of pesos in revenue are lost as unscrupulous individuals use ghost receipts. Now the Bureau of Internal Revenue is taking action. Let's get the details from Ivy Reyes. Ivy, go ahead.
The Philippine government lost about 1.4 billion pesos due to ghost receipts and ghost companies, prompting the Bureau of Internal Revenue to file 23 counts of tax evasion cases against 23 corporations, 56 corporate officers, and 17 public accountants. The Bureau said this amount accumulated for about 20 years, but their investigations have been stalled due to the difficulty of trailing fictitious names and addresses. Among the industries involved are corporations in construction, manufacturing, food, electronics, entertainment, marketing, and retail. BIR Commissioner Romeo Lumagi Jr. told the press this morning that overall loss due to ghost receipts has reached hundreds of billions. Apart from accountants and corporations, content creators and online sellers are also under investigation over unaccounted taxes. According to Lumagi, the problem comes when online creators refuse to declare their taxes. However, third-party sources eventually reveal before the commission the creators' earnings. Meanwhile, the Justice Department explained that these ghost companies scam the government by registering their business with the Securities and Exchange Commission and adding up fictitious expenses that are actually fraudulent. As of now, the BIR has not given out names of the corporations, but revealed that some are huge ones. We just wrapped up an interview with the DOJ, and a name came up. They said, as of now, they're focused on retrieving the bodies of the missing sabongeros, but in case they are going to consider investigating or probing the businesses and corporations of business tycoon Atong Mai.
Thank you for that report, Ivy Reyes. The Bureau of Internal Revenue is willing to investigate any individual to make sure they are paying the right taxes. BIR Commissioner Romeo Lumagi said this during a news briefing when he was asked if the agency is looking into gaming tycoon Charlie Atong Ang's businesses. But he clarifies he has yet to receive a request for the BIR to investigate Ang. The Bilyonaryo has been accused of being the mastermind behind the disappearance of dozens of sabongeros or cockfight enthusiasts. But Ang has repeatedly denied this. Various economic sectors record growth during the second quarter of this year. Sujin Kim joins us on the line for the details. Sujin, go ahead.
Mai, the Philippine economy grew 5.5% in the second quarter, slightly faster than the 5.4% recorded in Q1, but well below last year's 6.5%. According to DepDev Secretary Arsenie Balisacan, this puts the Philippines on track to meet the lower end of the government's full-year growth target of 5.5 to 6.5%.
With this performance, we maintain our place among the fastest-growing economies in emerging Asia, behind Vietnam's 8.0% growth, but ahead of China's 5.2% and Indonesia's 5.1%. While our growth is lower than India's projected 6.5% expansion, we're expected to outpace Malaysia's 4.3% and Thailand's 2.4%.
Hitting the upper end of the growth target, however, would require an aggressive 7.5% growth in the second half, according to national statistician Claire Dennis Mapa. All major sectors recorded gains. Agriculture jumped 7%, services rose 6.9%, and industry inched up 2.1%. While on the demand side, household consumption grew by 5.5%, government spending surged 8.7%, and exports also rose 4.4%. Outpacing imports at 2.9%. But headwinds are forming as U.S. President Donald Trump announced plans to impose a 100% tariff on imported semiconductors. Stakeholders are already saying effects would be devastating. Semiconductors account for nearly 70% of the country's total exports, making the industry extremely vulnerable. And this comes as the PSA yesterday recorded that there were significant job cuts in the semiconductor manufacturing industry, thus affecting livelihood and employment. But the government maintains
that the effects on us are not as big as some expect if they raise that to 100%, and that will include us, then of course that we will be affected. But insofar as it's the effects on the economy, I don't expect that to be too adverse, because for one, the value added of semiconductors and electronics is actually not that high compared to value added for other exports.
Meanwhile, on the issue of possible inflationary pressures brought by suspending rice imports for 60 days, Secretary Balisacan says he doesn't expect inflation to spike from this. And despite various risks, economic managers remain optimistic that steady domestic demand, easing inflation, and policy rate cuts from the central bank will provide enough momentum to stay within target. And those are latest updates from Quezon City. Back to you, Mai.
Thank you for that report, Sujin Kim. The government service insurance system defends its 1 billion peso investment in DigiPlus Interactive. It asserts that the pension fund remains strong, secure, and actuarially sound despite mounting public concern and congressional scrutiny. The agency also welcomes the scrutiny and call for public disclosure, adding that it is prepared to present all relevant documents to regulatory bodies. The statement came a day after Senator Risa Ontiveros criticized the investment. She called on GSIS to explain its decision to place public funds in an online gambling platform. We're taking a short break. A look at how Philippine stocks did today. Coming up next, you're watching Business Brief. Enrique Razon Jr. remains the richest Filipino for the second straight year with a net worth of $11.5 billion, up from $11.1 billion in 2024. The ports-to-casino magnate further solidified its lead over real estate tycoon Manuel Villar, whose net worth reached $11 billion. Razon's wealth boost was driven by a 33% gain in ICTSI stock price, while Villar's holdings were impacted by stock trading issues and struggling projects. The heirs of the late ultra-Bilyonaryo Henry C. Sr. still tops the richest family list, though their combined wealth dropped from $13 billion to just $11.8 billion. Other big movers include the Consunji, Ke Azcona, Zobel de Ayala, and Tan Caktiong families. Apple is investing another $100 billion to expand its operations in the United States. The move comes as President Trump plans to impose a large import tax on chips coming into America. Apple already committed $500 billion to growing its domestic footprint earlier this year, and the additional investment could help the tech giant sidestep potential tariffs on iPhones.
These investments will directly create more than 20,000 brand new American jobs and many thousands more at the Apple suppliers like Corning, Broadcom, Texas Instruments, and Samsung, who all deal in that world. So we have a great country. We have a country that is going to be very rich. It's a country that we're very proud of, but it's going to be very rich. And it's companies like Apple, they're coming home. They're all coming home. And we want them to come home.
Philippine shares snap its 4-day winning streak, even though the Philippine economy expanded to 5.5% in the second quarter. The PSE index ended lower by nearly 0.1% to close at 63.64, finishing the day as the fourth worst performer in Asia. Majority of the day's sectoral indices ended in the red, with industrial falling the most at over 1%. Decliners outpaced advancers 124 to 73. Total value turnover reached 6.3 billion pesos. The day's most active stocks ended mixed, with DigiPlus rising the most at more than 8%. One-day Nissin, meanwhile, fell the most at nearly 10%. Meanwhile, the foreign exchange market, the peso, is currently trading at 57.22 against the greenback, appreciating from the previous close of 57.48. That's a wrap for today's Business Brief. I'm Mai Rodriguez. Join us again tomorrow as we bring you the stories that help you plan your next big, bold moves in business, only here on the Bilyonaryo News Channel. See you then.